You're listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, the voice of the people, voted best radio station for music 2 years in a row by the Dallas Observer.
Did you know that KNON podcasts all of its local talk shows? KNON has local talk, each show covering your community in its own unique way. So if you missed one of our great morning talk shows, you can go back and listen to it online. We keep the shows for 2 months so you can hear everything you have been missing out on. Visit KNON.org for more information about the KNON Morning Talk Shows podcast. Also available on iTunes.
What a game! What a game!
Get off my lawn.
Jim Schutze here with Get Off My Lawn, the show that talks about what's really going on at City Hall, not what they tell you is going on. I want to talk to you about something this week, and I know what your first reaction is going to be when you hear about it. You're going to think, this is not a thing I care about, but you do care about it, and I'll explain to you why. This comes from a briefing I attended this week for the Dallas City Council. You know, the Dallas City Council meets and has a regular meeting every other week, every other Wednesday. They have a meeting where they vote on stuff, but on the odd Wednesdays, in between, they have what they call their briefing day, and that's when the city staff comes in and talks to them about what they need to be doing. So this last Wednesday was a briefing day, and the city council discussed something called the horse park. The staff told them that the city of Dallas needs a horse park, and in fact we need it urgently, and we need to spend $15 million of your money, your money, tax money, for a horse park. When I first heard this term, horse park, my first question was, what's a horse park? I had this image in my mind of a bunch of horses sitting around on the grass, with a huge wicker basket and a big bottle of horse-sized wine and some French bread, sitting around telling horse jokes at a picnic. That's not what a horse park is. And I'm going to explain to you what a horse park is. A horse park has to do with this sport that is called dressage, dressage. It's one of those parts of the Olympics that you don't watch. But you might know what it is if I describe it to you. It's people on horses, of course, and they wear little black tuxedos, and they have little kind of black beanie hats with a pom-pom in the middle and a bill on the front, and they sit very ramrod straight. They don't look like John Wayne on a horse. They look more like Mary Poppins on a horse. And they ride around in circles and jump over walls. And they're graded on how they do, jumping over the walls. I don't want to sound like I'm totally disparaging the sport, because I know some people who do it. It's a very demanding sport. It's very athletic, very precise, and it doesn't hurt anybody. It's not like they're taking candy from babies or something. So that's dressage. That's what you do at a horse park. This kind of stuff, for example, is a big favorite activity with Ann Romney, the wife of Mitt Romney. So it's not a thing that you see in a lot of working class neighborhoods. It's more up there with polo. You know, polo, where they ride around on a horse with the huge croquet mallets and hit the ball. It's very, very expensive to take part in dressage. You can't just have one horsey. You have to have several horses, and you truck them around the country, and you take part in these competitive events. So the theory here is that the city of Dallas needs to have a dressage horse park that's going to be paid for with tax money. That would be great if you live in I live in an older part of the city. We need a lot of stuff in our part of the city. We'd like to have like new sewers, water mains, it would be nice if the city could mow the grass, on the city-owned parkways and parks. For example, the city owns 21 municipal swimming pools where little kids can swim, but the city can only open 7 of those 21 municipal swimming pools because they don't have the money to open the rest of them. So the theory here is forget about the mowing the grass before, don't open all those swimming pools. Don't give Schutze his new sewer pipe down the alley. It's more important. The thing we got to get to first is the horse park. And a lady I know for whom I have a lot of respect, who's very involved in this stuff, said to me, Jim, this is a chance for, don't make it out to be a big elite thing. This is a chance for kids in your neighborhood to get involved in dressage. And I said to her, you want to be really careful before you walk around my neighborhood telling people you want children to be involved in something called dressage. Make sure that everybody knows what you're talking about, because you could get whooped upside the head for that. So now we know what it is, right? You and I, we know what a horse park is. It's a thing. It's a place where you do this riding the horses around the circle, jumping over walls. By the way, if you know more, it would be easy for you to know more about this than I do. So call me up if you can enlighten me. I'm here at 972-647-1893. Call up, talk to me on the air. Tell me the error of my ways. 972-647-1893. So back to the city council briefing last week. The city council staff person, a very smart lady who's an assistant city manager named Jill Jordan, said to the council, the voters of Dallas have said twice that they want this horse park, and therefore we got to get it done. The voters want this horse park. And I'm sitting out there in the audience thinking, man, did I say that? I'm a voter. I vote every time. Did I tell them I wanted a horse park? I'm trying to think. Was there did I vote in an election where it said horse park, yes or no? And I bent over with my magic marker, and I circled in the dot for yes. Got to have a horse park. I don't remember that. So I went back and looked later. I looked up the elections, and indeed, in 1998 and in 2006, apparently I voted for a horse park. It didn't say horse park anywhere on the ballot. In fact, I would argue you'd have to be kind of a lawyer and a researcher to go back through all the documents for that election and find the words horse park. They're in there. You can find them, but you'd have to dig way in. So when I went in the voting booth, no, I never. The ballot never said to me, Jim, do you want a horse park? Yes or no? But technically, legally, you get into the fine print. This horse park was voted for twice. Let me pause. We got somebody on the line already. George is on line 1. George, are you still there?
Yes.
George, are you calling about this horse park stuff?
Yeah, well, actually, I'm calling in response to your comment about the lady said it's not an elitist thing, and she couldn't be further from the truth. Dressage is pretty elitist, expensive sport to get into. The horses, a properly fitted horse for dressage, is very expensive. The outfits are expensive. It's a nice event to watch, but unless you got a pocket full of money, you're not going to compete in it. And going into neighborhoods around Dallas, it's going to be into the higher end neighborhood.
George,
and the taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for that.
Do you have any idea? I don't. When we talk about like a horse for something like this, what does a horse cost for something like this? A
good dressage horse will run you between $10,000 and $20,000. I ride reining horses, and my horse was $20,000.
$20,000, and if you're a dressage, I know if you play polo, you got to have a bunch of horses. Do you have to have a bunch to do dressage, or do you just have one that you?
Usually just one. You can have more than one, but one gets you done. You can show one and practice on it. But it's usually populated by people with a lot of money, like
Right.
polo.
Right.
They're very snobbish. They're very elitist.
Uh-huh.
It's not like Western horses at all.
Yeah. I'm trying, but George, I'm bending over backwards, not to be a jerk and to be fair about this, but it looks elitist. I mean, it looks snobby. Is that fair?
It's very snobby and very elite.
Okay. And
Those
you
people
don't
look down on everybody. If you're not into the dressage or the hunter jumper, well, they look down on you.
right. Okay. If you showed up like on your your regular Western saddle horse and said, "Hey, can I ride along and jump over some of these walls?" You would not be welcome, right? That's not how it works.
No, you would not. But there is a new event out they call Western dressage, which is similar to dressage, but it is done in a Western saddle and on a loose rein, and but it's very new to this area. It hasn't been around very long.
You know, one of the things I've discovered, George, tell me if this is right, but in recent years, I've become aware that there are a lot of horses within the city, and there are a lot of horses in southern Dallas, a lot more than people would think, because there's a lot of land down there. They're not this kind of horse we're talking about, but southern Dallas has got a lot of it, a really rural feel to it. And there are a lot of people there who ride horses. And I know a guy who has a ranch within the city who makes horses available to kids, challenged kids who got issues. And he swears that it's really great for kids to be involved with horses.
It is very good. It's very good for kids. It teaches responsibility. And a lot of kids, disadvantaged kids, challenged kids, whatever their situation, it gets them away from their existence. They can get over and play with their horse, ride their horse, groom their horse, take care of it.
Right.
And it gets away from whatever negative influence they have in their life. Because the horse can be a very positive influence.
Right. And George, I'm going to get eventually with this long sad story I'm telling, I'm going to get to the fact that the current version that they're talking about for the horse park is actually not dressage yet. They are talking about nonprofits who would come in initially and do this kind of horse therapy with needy kids. And some of those people showed up at this briefing, and I talked to them later, and I checked them out, and they're very decent. There's nothing wrong with those people. There's a group called eQuest and another group called River Ranch. And
River Ranch, very good organization.
Yeah, they seem to do good work. I don't think there's a negative word to be said about them. I think they're being used as window dressing, because this whole thing, when this started, it was about dressage, and it still is. And I'll get to that. And George, thank you very much for calling. That helps put it into perspective for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
So George and I were talking a little bit about the different ways that horses can be used with children, and for dealing with kids with issues. And so the idea that you would have a horse-based facility that would help city kids is not crazy. I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. The idea that there is a horse tradition in southern Dallas is absolutely true. There really is. That's something that people who don't know southern Dallas don't get it. They don't understand how much open land there is, how much rural ranch and farm tradition and rodeo tradition there is. There's a lot. And when I drive through southern Dallas, it's not at all uncommon to see people riding down some of those less developed roads on horseback. And if it's important to say, then I'll say they're not white people. I see African American people, Latino people on horses in southern Dallas. So horses are not foreign to southern Dallas, but dressage, the thing with the black uniforms and the jumping, it's initially an English thing. And as I say, it comes from fox hunting, and it's very Englishy. It's like polo. It's for people who have a ton of money and they want to be sort of Englishy. And so initially the deal was that the city was to kick in $3 million for this dressage park, and then the wealthy people were going to kick in $15 million. Wow, that's a heck of a deal. We put in 3, they put in 15. So then the deal changed, and they said, well, no, actually the way it needs to work is you put in 15 million, and we'll put in 1 million, which we don't quite have yet. But just go ahead and put your 15 million in, and meaning you, the city. I meaning you, the taxpayer. You pay $15 million for our dressage horse park, and we will come up with 1 million pretty soon. We will gladly pay you Friday for a hamburger today. That's quite a different deal. And as I said a little bit earlier, this stuff has been sort of snuck into these bond issue elections that we have every once in a while. Bonds are tricky. People have the idea that, it's not really costing me any money, it comes from the bond money. I've even heard reporters say that. That's crazy. Bond money is a loan that we take out. It's a mortgage that we take out. So that I looked up the interest on some of this stuff. That first $3 million that we were going to borrow to put in this, to pay that all off, we would have paid a total of $4.2 million. Then in 2006, they came back for another bite of the apple, and they said they wanted, I think it's another $12 million in the 2006 bond issue. I may be getting my numbers mixed up, but anyway, when I did the interest on that second one over a 15-year bond issue, we would have been paying about $17.2 million to pay it off because we have to pay the interest anyway. We would have wound up putting over $21 million into this horse park. And the wealthy people who originally said they were going to put $15 million in, they changed their minds. And they said $1 million. So that's pretty different. That wasn't the deal. If I go into Ace Hardware and get a box full of deck screws and the lady says it's $15, I can't say, I'll give you $1. That's not how it works. Anyway, we're going to come back to this after a break. Jim Schutze, Get Off My Lawn. See you in a second.
KNON depends on listener support to stay on the air, and now is the time for you to help keep this show on the air. If you like what you're hearing and want to show your appreciation for great community radio, pick up the phone and call to make a pledge. Call 972-647-1893 or go online to knon.org. Don't wait for someone else to do it. Without the support of our listeners, there won't be any community radio on the air in North Texas. So take a few minutes to make a pledge. Call 972-647-1893 or go online to knon.org.
J-Mac of KNON's Monday Evening Blues Show is celebrating 25 years on the air here at KNON with a big party on Sunday, November 18th at Poor David's Pub. Joining J-Mac in the celebration are his great friends, the Texas Slim Trio, and Jason Elmore and Hoodoo Witch. There'll be a free dinner from Vito's Brisket Tacos, Rice and Beans. The doors will be at 5 p.m. for an evening of some of the best blues and brisket tacos this side of the Trinity River. It's going to be a party you don't want to miss. Who knows who may show up and sit in? Tickets available now at knon.org, Bill's Records, and Forever Young Records. That's J-Mac's 25th anniversary party with the Texas Slim Trio at Jason Elmore and Hoodoo Witch on Sunday, November 18th at Poor David's Pub, located at 1313 South Lamar in Dallas.
It hurt me so bad, cut like a knife.
Jim Schutze, back with the Get Off My Lawn. We've been talking about the Texas Horse Park, and I know, I said at the beginning, you're going to think, I don't care about that. But here's why you care about it. The city is talking about spending some 12 to 15 million bucks on this horse park thing, and they can't open swimming pools, and they can't mow the lawn. And there was a very brave guy, a man named Lee Kleinman, who's a member of the Dallas Park Board, and he sent a letter to every city council member, and he said, please vote against this. He basically, his letter said, this is not right. This is the immediate amount of cash money they're talking about putting into this is $12 million. And he's saying for $12 million, you could open 3 aquatic centers where you teach kids how to swim. You know, there's a lot you can do with $12 million before you build a horse park, which is a thing that most people don't even know what it is. I want to pause and remind you that we are in the middle of our KNON pledge drive. And I just can't tell you how important it is for you to support KNON. This is really a one-horse town. I spoke to a group of visiting foreign journalists yesterday from Europe. I think it was 19 from all over Europe. And I was trying to explain to them how controlled the media market is in Dallas. There's only one daily newspaper. It tends to dominate the news cycle, and it expresses a very official view of what's going on, and only the official view, and then that's where the TV stations get their lead, and that affects the whole atmosphere. And some of them were kind of saying, wow, this sounds like how it is back in my country. You know, one lady was from Turkey, and she was saying Dallas sounded a lot like her city in Turkey in terms of excuse me, the absence of open, free dialogue. KNON is one of the rare exceptions to that. KNON is where you can get something that isn't the party line, and you can sort of see through that screen that is constantly between the citizenry and what the officials at City Hall are really up to. Call me up at 972-647-1893 and help us with a pledge for this pledge drive, 972-647-1893. We got some great stuff that we're giving away to express our thanks. If you give us a $50 or more pledge drive, for example, this morning, we'll give you 2 tickets to the Chinese Lantern Festival, which is a wonderful site that debuted at the State Fair of Texas this year. It's open through January 6th, and it's at Fair Park, and it's this just incredible work of old world handcraft, and this dramatic presentation of porcelains and animated creatures and the huge blossoming lotus. It's really something to see. You'll get in for free if you call us this morning with a pledge at 972-647-1893. There's a whole list of stuff you can choose from, especially if you can kick it up to $75. Call and ask about it. We have hoodies and T-shirts with the KNON logo on them. Some of them point out that on the back that KNON was voted this year the Dallas's best music station by the Dallas Observer, my newspaper. My day job is at the Observer, and that's a very serious thing. The Observer thinks hard about this. I would argue, look, you can tell me this is self-serving, but I would argue that the Observer is the single most authoritative voice in terms of local music. And after looking at every radio station in the city, the Observer said KNON was the best for local music. So you can help keep that happening if you'll call us this morning at 972-647-1893. Give us what you can. Try to make it $50 if at all possible. Try to make it more. Well, look, try to make it like $10,000. If you could call up and give us $10,000, I would. Well, anyway, let's go back to $75. See if you can do that. Do what you can do. Give us a call at 972-647-1893. If you're out there and you had a late night, let's say you had a really late night and you don't feel just right this morning, you're kind of confused about things, but you could write a check for $100,000, call up right away. Call right now, before you have too much time to think about it, okay? 972-647-1893. So, this morning I've been talking about this crazy thing that the city staff is telling the Dallas City Council that we just urgently need to do, called the Texas Horse Park. And this originally started out as a thing that was going to be for this sport called dressage. And that's the sport with the Mary Poppins people and so on, riding around in black outfits on horses, jumping over walls. We had a caller, George, at the beginning of the show, who sounded knowledgeable about horses, and he pointed out that this is a very elite thing. It costs, George said he estimated it was going to be $20,000 just for the horse. And then you have to have a big, huge horse trailer, fancy trailer that you can live in and so on, and you go around the country to all these events. In describing this to the city council, Assistant City Manager Jill Jordan said, I think of this is a quote, she said, I think of this as the Horse Convention Center. Okay, we have a convention center downtown, now we need a horse convention center. And they're going to build this on hundreds of acres of city-owned land along the Trinity River in the Great Trinity Forest. This is not wasteland. This is not just empty land. I spoke last week to a gentleman named Tim Dalby, D-A-L-B-E-Y, who's a very knowledgeable Dallas naturalist, who's very familiar with all of this land. He said this land is a priceless archaeological treasure. It's a Pleistocene plateau where there are remains of all kinds of prehistoric animals, where there is evidence of very, very early human habitation. This is an incredible natural treasure, and it's owned by the city. And we could approach it for what it is, as a treasure. There are also lots of other places. If you got to have a horse park, if you absolutely have to have a horse park, there are lots of other places to do it. You can do the city-owned land, the other side of the river. There are places where there were old neighborhoods that were condemned years ago and scraped out and bulldozed because of flood control problems. You can still sort of halfway see some of the house pads out there in the woods. You could go do your horse park there. But Tim Dalby's saying, don't do it. Here you'll destroy this priceless resource. Nevertheless, the city staff says the thing that the city hall needs to do right now is build a horse park. Now, the initial deal was that the horsey people, the dressage people, were going to kick in $15 million of their own money. And they said they'd raise that, no problem, no sweat. We'll just get on the phones and raise the $15 million. Well, then they came back to the city and said, we weren't really able to raise any money. We sort of have a line on $1 million. And last I heard, they didn't have the $1 million. They had an IOU. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe the $15 million is in the bank. I haven't seen it. I didn't hear it described. It sounded to me at the meeting last week like we're still talking about kind of an IOU. But the point is, they did not come up with the $15 million that they said they were going to come up with. And so I would think, all right, the deal's off. But see, here's the problem. In 1998 and in 2006, this language was woven in way down into the bond programs that we voted for in those 2 years, setting aside first $3 million and then another $12 million in city tax money for this horse park. So the city staff, they've already spent $3 million of it on the land, and they still got $12 million in their hot little hands, and it's burning a hole in their pockets. They have a right, and they actually don't have the cash in their hands. What they have is the right to go borrow the cash. We gave them permission to go to the bank and borrow $12 million, sign a mortgage for $12 million to build this horse park. And they feel like if they don't build the horse park, they're missing out on the chance to go borrow that $12 million and to do something with it. Now, I said a little bit ago that there's this very brave gentleman on the park board, a man named Lee Kleinman, who sent a letter to the city council and said, please, don't build a horse park. Don't build this thing. This is gonna help. I think, and he said in his letter, this thing will help maximum 150 people, 150 children. And he said, you can help thousands of children learn to swim. This is enough money for 2 to 3 aquatic centers. If you want to go borrow the $12 million, if you just absolutely have to borrow it, I would say, Jim Schutze, I would say the other option is don't borrow the money. Thank you. I have to pay it back. You borrow the money. I'm the taxpayer. I have to pay it back. How about we don't borrow the money? But Lee Kleinman was saying, okay, if you really feel like you got to go borrow this money and spend it on something, just don't spend it on this. Spend it on something that really helps a lot of kids. And at this briefing last week, one of the more North Dallas, sort of Northeast Dallas, white city council members said, in my district, I have a lot of poor kids in the apartments. They have no way to get to southern Dallas to go to a horse park. So why don't we build something up here that they can get to? And so that's what Lee Kleinman's letter said. It said, please, if you have to borrow the money and you have to spend it on something, don't spend it on this. Now, you might think, dear listener, you're out there, you're thinking, wait a minute. If it's true that we voted in 1998 and 2006 to spend this money, $12 million on a horse park, then probably legally they have to spend it on a horse park. Well, that's not true. That's not how it works. In fact, the city of Dallas went to court over the Trinity River project, and they said, the city argued in court, we are not legally bound to spend bond money for the stuff we said we were going to spend it for. And believe it or not, they won that lawsuit. I don't want to go into all of that here this morning, but the court said, you're right. You can, if you change your mind, you can spend it on something else. Now, I would think, politically, I'd like to hear that when they're doing the bond elections. When they're asking me to vote for the bond elections, I would like them to say, oh, by the way, we may not do any of the stuff we said we were going to do with your money. We might change our minds and spend it on something else. They never say that. When they're trying to get you to vote for the bond election, it's always, we're going to spend this on flood control, and if you don't vote for it, you're going to die. And so, that's why we all tend to support these bond elections, because they're put in such dire terms. But the fact is, once they get their hands on the money, they can spend it on whatever they want to. So what Lee Kleinman, the park board member, was saying was, okay, you went to court, you won, you get to change your mind about what you spend the money on. Please, change your mind about this. Don't spend this money on this loony horse park. I need to pause again and say that if you're listening and you know about this stuff and you have strong feelings about it, or you think I'm nuts and I don't know what I'm talking about, call me up. 972-647-1893. It's Jim Schutze with Get Off My Lawn, 972-647-1893. You can also call that same number and help to keep this radio station on the air, because we're doing our fall pledge drive. And if you call us at 972-647-1893 and pledge $50, pledge $75, pledge what you can, pledge $1 million, you are personally making a big difference in the media climate in the city, because KNON is such an exception to the rule in the city. If you help keep this station on the air, you're really changing the kind of city this is, and that's I can't tell you what you could do with that $50 that would make more of a difference in Dallas than giving it to KNON to help keep us doing what we're doing. That's 972-647-1893. 972-647-1893. So back to the horse park deal. The council member, the park board member, Lee Kleinman, sent this very moving letter to the city council saying, don't do this. Don't spend $12 million on a horse park. Spend it on something that people can really use if you have to spend it. And I want to tell you that the reaction of the council was really perplexing. Now, you had a certain set of people on the council. I would call them kind of the civic-minded pragmatists. I'm talking about Sandy Grayson. I'm talking about Angela Hunt, Councilperson Allen, others who were who agreed with, kind of seemed like they agreed with the park board guy, and they had tough questions. But the rest of the council was angry. They were angry at this guy for getting in their business because they were so eager to spend this money on the horse park. And I'll explain why that is. I know that sounds crazy. It is crazy. First, we got Herbert on the line. Herbert, how are you this morning? Herbert, are you still there?
Yes, good morning.
Herbert, how are you?
Oh, just fine. How you doing?
I'm good. What's up this morning?
First of all, this horse park that they're talking about, I would like to know whose idea was this?
Well, this idea, that's a good question. This idea first originally came from a very small group of people who were interested in this elite sport called dressage, and they wanted a place to do it. And so it came from them.
Okay. Now, at the same time, they're asking the taxpayers to pay for this?
Yeah, and there's the wrinkle. I don't know, Herbert, maybe, well, go ahead. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Tell me how you feel about it.
Well, first of all, if they want this park, then they should be able to pay for it themselves. Now, they're cutting out all these programs, Parent Planhood, and all the stuff that needs to be going on here in the city for the poor. And I never voted for this. And my feeling is that I think that this is some kind of way that we need to get the word out to the people. We can send the taxpayers to let them know about this.
Herbert, listen, I want to thank you a great deal for your call. I'm getting some kind of echo on the phone. We're having a sound issue. But Herbert, in case it wasn't clear to listeners, Herbert was calling and saying that if people are really interested in this sport called dressage, which is a very elite, expensive sport, then they need to pay for it themselves. They need to build their own horse park and not ask city taxpayers to do it. Herbert was also saying that there are a lot of other really pressing needs that seem to be coming under the axe. All the stuff that we really do need that we can't afford. So why would we pay for this, what seems like an extremely luxurious kind of activity? But the most important thing Herbert said was that we need to get the word out. And I want to talk to you about that in the last segment of the show coming up, because there's a way to do that. Jim Schutze, get off my lawn. We'll see you when we come back.
Blue Lisa's annual Thanksgiving live broadcast will be happening on Thursday, November 22nd from 9 a.m. till noon, and you're invited. Join Lisa and special guests Reverend K.M. Williams, KNON's own Greg A. Smith and J. Mack, and Jackie Donlow for the live broadcast and Thanksgiving breakfast from the Alligator Cafe. It's happening at the KNON Studios, located at 5353 Maple Avenue at Butler in Dallas, and seating is very limited, so get your tickets now at KNON.org. Come join Blue Lisa, Reverend K.M. Williams, Greg A. Smith, J. Mack, and Jackie Donlow for this great Thanksgiving tradition on Thursday, November 22nd from 9 a.m. till noon for the live broadcast. This is a KNON benefit event.
And just added Kirkland James. KNON would like to thank you for supporting community radio. Your donations continue to keep the voice of the people on the air. Did you know that many companies offer a matching donation when you make a pledge to KNON? Ask your company if they have a matching program. When your employer matches your pledge, KNON reaches its goal twice as fast, bringing you more of the music you love.
Want to hear some great Texas blues? KNON has the CD for you. KNON's Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, our latest blues compilation CD to benefit community radio, sponsored by Forever Young Records. This CD features 15 tracks and 60 minutes of great original Dallas-Fort Worth blues from Tutu Jones, Blues Boy Bo, Buddy Whittington, Andrea Dawson, Kirkland James, Sonny Colley, Johnny Red and the Roosters, the Chris Watson Band, the Two Tones, the Rough Cut Blues Band, Jeff Stone and Charlie Love, Dave Millsap, Sirloin and the Ass-Kicking Machine, Michael J. and the Paul Bird Band, and JJ and the Detonators. We're only selling 1,000 copies and it will never be reissued. Get your copy now at Forever Young Records in Grand Prairie, Recordtown in Fort Worth, and in Dallas at Bill's Records and Rewind Music. The CD is available as an MP3 download at KNON.org. All the proceeds benefit community radio, KNON. For more info on Texas Blues Radio Volume 5, visit us at KNON.org. Get your copy now and hear some real Texas blues. Your ears will thank you for it.
Hey, babes, I'll take one now.
Jim Schutze, back with the last segment of Get Off My Lawn for this week, and we've been talking about the proposed Texas Horse Park. Before I get into it, let me give you a chance to call us up and give us some money at 972-647-1893. We need money to keep this thing going. 972-647-1893. Whatever you can do is most helpful, and we have a whole list of pretty cool giveaways for people to say thanks, so you can go over that when you call in. We've been talking about this proposal that the city has to build a thing called the horse park on city land. And the last caller we talked to, Herbert, talked about the need to get the word out. We've established that this purpose for this land is pretty elitist. Doesn't mean bad, but it's pretty elite. To buy a horse to use in this stuff, it costs you $20,000. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the immediate proposal before the city council is not for the dressage thing. That's kind of gone into the background because they didn't raise the money they promised to raise. Instead, what the council is being asked to do is take hundreds of acres, $3 million worth of city land, $12 million worth of investment, and give it to a small group of nonprofits who are going to come in and do pony rides and stuff for disabled kids and challenged kids. Those people, the nonprofits, showed up at the thing Wednesday where this was talked about, and I think they're really good people. They're great people. Their hearts are in the right place. They have facilities out in the suburbs where they do this kind of stuff. This would allow them to come into the city, and there's nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with what they do, and they're not they're not crooks. They're honest people who are doing something that's dear to their hearts, and it's probably very helpful. It's helpful to a very small number of kids. Just think about it. How many kids could you serve if you spent the $12 million on 3 aquatic centers where you would teach thousands of children to swim, and all they have to do is walk there or take a little bus ride, and it's in their neighborhood, versus 50 kids at a time on horse trails. It's not that there's anything wrong with the 50 kids at a time on horse trails. It's that it serves such a tiny number of people compared to what it would seem like you could do with this money otherwise. So the staff is telling the city council, you got to do it. And I told you that this gentleman on the park board, Lee Kleinman, had written to the council saying, please don't do it. This is a crazy use of the money. And some of the council members were really angry about the letter. They said they didn't appreciate getting that letter, and they spoke out about it. In the audience, while this briefing is going on, were all of the dressage people, the people who want the fancy horse park. These are very wealthy people. And the city council members, I just can't describe the scene to you. When they see those people in the audience, they just start wiggling and giggling and grinning. It's so important to them to suck up to these people. And I mean, I've even been there when they didn't do it this time, but in previous meetings they'll say, "Oh, and by the way, we are privileged to have so-and-so in our audience." And so-and-so is some rich person that they're sucking up to. And so that crowd was in the audience Wednesday. And a majority of the city council people, especially the African American members, I mean, nobody gets more giggly about these rich ladies, for example, than Dallas City Councilwoman Von Seal Hill. She's the one who in the past has said, "We are privileged to have so-and-so in our audience today." I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why that is. I don't know why council members who represent the poorest neighborhoods in the city with the greatest need and the kids who have the greatest needs, why they get all giggly and wiggly and blushy when the rich ladies are in the audience, but they do. And so that's how this went last Wednesday. The council people were saying, this letter telling us not to do that, we don't appreciate this. And they're talking about how this horse park thing will be a great economic engine for southern Dallas, a great economic opportunity for southern Dallas. I don't even begin to get what economic opportunity. Bringing a bunch of very wealthy people there to jump over walls? What do you think, the money's going to fall out of their pockets when they jump over the walls? I just don't get how that's an economic opportunity for anybody else in southern Dallas. But that's the line. Now, these decent people, these nonprofit people who use pony rides and stuff to help poor kids and disabled kids, they're being used as sort of stalking horses, if I may, to just get this thing done. The staff is saying, we're going to take hundreds of acres of city land and we're going to take $12 million in investment and we're going to give it to these nonprofits for 30 years. And some of the smarter council members, like Mr. Griggs from Oak Cliff, said, well, wait a minute, where are their financials? Before we give away hundreds of acres of city land and $12 million worth of investment, who are these people? What are their budgets? How many people do they serve? We need to do some due diligence here. And none of that had been done. None. These nonprofit groups, they're nice people, but they just wandered into the room. When one of the council members said, how many people do you serve? At first, this guy said, thousands. Well, the follow-up question would be, how many thousand? Give us a number. But he said thousands. And then it turns out, I don't know, they had a pumpkin patch sale where they sold pumpkins for a fundraiser, and he thought there were at least 1,000 people who came to buy pumpkins. I'm just saying, before you give $12 million and hundreds of acres of city land to people, you ask for a little bit more due diligence than this. And what this is really is just a way to get it done, get it on the ground. What the city staff is looking for is an excuse to borrow, to run to the bank and borrow that $12 million to sign the mortgage. And guess whose name they put on the mortgage? Yours, mine. The taxpayers have to pay off the mortgage for this thing. They just want to get the mortgage done. And they're going to have these I think these nonprofits who are being stuck in the middle of this are victims. I think they're being used. They don't know what they're in for. But that way they'll get the mortgage signed, And then later they can say, oh, well, the pony rides aren't paying off the mortgage, and so we're going to have to change this up, and we're going to have to bring the rich people back in with the dressage. That's why the rich dressage people were in the audience Wednesday, doing all this winky wink, wave the hand with the council members. And the council members are practically, curtsying to them to get this thing done. So, one of our callers, Herbert, made a very good point this morning. He said, we need to get the word out. We need to do something to stop this. This isn't right. And my point is, you can do that. You can. Let me tell you the simplest way. People say, call your council person. And most people don't know who their council person is. And they have no idea, because you have a life, and you have other stuff to do, and you don't spend all your time thinking about the Dallas City Council. And so you don't even know, how would I get the phone number of my council person? Well, call 311. Just call 311 and say, I want to talk to my council person. And they'll say, oh, well, this isn't the right number. This is for the sewer. Say, yeah, fine. I want to talk to my council person. They'll get you there. Call 311 and talk to your council person about this horse park. Oh, boy. Money. We've got money that's come in from Sylvia. Sylvia, are you still on line 1?
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you for your pledge this morning.
Oh, you're definitely welcome.
That's very helpful.
You know what, in your answering the question, I would just wanted to know, what is it that we can do to help deter that horse park business? Because that's just not helping, the greater amount of people as opposed to a few.
Yeah, and there's such a need out there. If there's any money on the table, last I heard, the city was cutting, not enough money. So if there's some money on the table, why wouldn't we use it for a greater need? That's an excellent point. And people always say, Sylvia, call your council person. Mm-hmm. But the average person, doesn't know how to call the council person, not from being stupid, from you don't think about that all the time, right?
Right.
You have a life to live. And it's hard enough to know where to go to vote for president. How do you know how to call your city council person? So I'm saying the city has this phone number called 311. Mm-hmm. And they'll tell you, oh, don't call there to talk to your council person. You need to call there to get your sewer line fixed or something like that. But the thing about 311 is it's easy to remember, and it's City Hall. And you can call 311 and say, I want to talk to my council person. If they say, well, this isn't the right number, say, wait a minute. Are you the city? I want to talk to my council person. Just either give me the right phone number or connect me, and they can connect you. So if you have strong feelings about this and you feel that this isn't right and that they shouldn't be spending this kind of money on a thing that serves so few people, call 311.
Okay.
Don't call 411.
Mm-hmm.
But
what is it called again?
The thing that they want to build,
park.
They're calling it the Texas Horse Park.
Oh, okay.
And even if you can't remember that, you don't have to know that. Mm-hmm. Even when you call 311 and you get your council person's office, you're not going to get your council person. You're going to get an assistant. And just say, look, I want to leave my name and my phone number, and I want you to tell my council person that I'm against that horse thing. Mm-hmm. That's a good enough name for it. Just call it that horse thing. Mm-hmm. They'll know.
This is just about as bad as the Fair Park, the use of the land at Fair Park. It's, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's a question of priorities. It's also a question of who has sway down there.
I don't know. I just think at some point it seems like the wealthy people would feel like they have enough money to pay for some of the things and not put it on the backs of, people that, are stressed out of trying to meet their daily needs.
Not only is that true, But there are people in southern Dallas. There's a gentleman I know whose name is Robert Petrie, who owns a place called Skyline Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got, Robert Petrie is he's a used car dealer. He's a businessman, but he's not like a super wealthy guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he uses his own money to give rides, to run a program for children, young people in need, kids in need. He puts his money on the line. He does what he wants to do. He gets it done. So if you're a wealthy person, and what you want to do is this thing called dressage, you want to jump over walls and on a horse, spend your own money.
Right. For sure.
Why does the taxpayer have to do it? That's, I think you make a very important point. And hey, thanks for your pledge.
Definitely.
Hopefully other people will follow your lead and call 972-647-1893 and give us some help with some money. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
That was a pledge from Sylvia, who called in and gave us some money and give us some more money. In the next hour, we got the super fundraisers coming up in this next show. So it's time to get your checkbooks out, because this is where the money really rolls, and you'll be impressed. This has been Jim Schutze this hour with Get Off My Lawn. Get Off My Lawn is the KNON radio version of a regular feature that I write every weekday on the web page of the Dallas Observer. I'm urging you to call us up and give us some money. And here's a good argument why.
Jim, this is Mark Mundy with the Friday Renegade Show. Country, man, I love your show now that it's moved from Monday to Saturday morning, because I can listen to this, and there's not a show in the city that has this kind of free form, but people have to call. Sylvia called and made a very generous donation. But folks need to call in and support these kind of shows. And the phone number is 972-647-1893. You get to call Jim and talk about all these issues, but you need to support Jim. And the phone number is 972-647-1893. He's got about another minute and a half. Annie's down here. Action Annie's down here to take your call.
I don't want you to feel sorry for me. But I have this hanging over my head. Right here in the studio is this huge axe. And there's a guy named Clint who's got his hand on the string. That axe is going to fall if we don't get some money in here. Thanks. It's Jim Schutze. Get Off My Lawn. We'll see you this same time, 10 a.m. next week, next Saturday. Bye-bye.
You're listening to KNON 89.3 FM in Dallas, the voice of the people, voted best radio station for music 2 years in a row by the Dallas Observer.
Did you know that KNON podcasts all of its local talk shows? KNON has local talk, each show covering your community in its own unique way. So if you missed one of our great morning talk shows, you can go back and listen to it online. We keep the shows for 2 months so you can hear everything you have been missing out on. Visit KNON.org for more information about the KNON Morning Talk Shows podcast, also available on iTunes.